Hey, how's it going, guys? Ricky Summer here. Today I've come back in time to talk to you about automation in Reaper. Cue the intro. Alright, welcome to one of my latest sessions. So for those of you who have been following along with the progress of my upcoming EP, Lascivious Moon, it's done. It's straight up, it's done. And it's like 3 months almost until the release date. So what am I going to do while I'm waiting for the thing to actually drop? Because I want it to drop at a very specific time. I'm going to start on the next album. This time it's going to have lyrics, whereas Lascivious Moon is just completely instrumental. I want to try something new. But I love writing lyrics, so we're getting back to lyrics. So let's talk about automation. On the subject of lyrics, because I use automation probably most effectively when I'm recording vocals. But let's just talk through automation in a basic sense to begin with. So I think it might have been Desric in one of my recent streams, Twitch streams, was asked about envelopes and automation in Reaper. So that's why we're doing this. Okay, so automation is basically just like what you're seeing here. This is the most basic form of automation as far as I'm concerned. I'm just going to get rid of the mixer there. We don't need it. So what this is basically telling the track to have a certain specific volume at a certain specific time. That's all it is. And it presents itself, you control it using these little sort of node controls here that can snap to the grid, but they don't have to. So I'm going to get rid of all that. I don't want any of that. So the way we do this is just holding Shift, and then you click on the line there. But you might be going, Rick, you're getting ahead of yourself. How do I bring this up in the first place? Well, we've got a couple of sort of basic things that you can automate that are bound to hotkeys, but there are, we can automate whatever the hell we want. Like, literally whatever we want. I haven't yet come across something that cannot be automated in Reaper, which is great. So this is volume. You just hit V. It's as simple as that. You select the track you want to automate the volume of, and you hit V. That's all it is. The other big one that I use, the common one that I use, is panning. To get that, you select the track and you hit P. And panning, just to remind you guys, is how much of the signal is sounding at in one ear compared to the other. So by default, it's centered, which means equal amounts of a particular track are sounding out in both ears. If we pan it all the way to the left, see it says 100% L, that means it's all coming out of the left. 100% right, all coming out of the right. Anyway, so automating. Hold Shift, you create two nodes, and then you move them. It's as simple as that. So you might look at this and you go, well, hang on, this is something entirely different. This is not just a straight line from point A to point B. You're right, it's not. And this is actually fantastic. This is a more recent addition to Reaper that allows you to select from a preset shape for your envelope. Sorry, I've just skimmed the mic there. I get too excited. It's my Italian hands. I can't help it. Anyway, so the way you do this is you select both nodes, then you right click somewhere on the envelope, you go to set shape for selected points, linear, square, slow start, slow end, which is my favorite. I use that one a lot. That's the one you're seeing here. Fast start, fast end, and Bezier. I don't know how to pronounce that one, but that's what that looks like. Looks like maybe it's a little more subtle version of slow start, slow end, fast end, right? Fast start, you get it. Anyway, let's just go back to slow start, slow end. So what I've got here is, like I said, just an automated volume, and I'm going to show you what that sounds like. It's just the swell coming into the track, and you may notice that I've actually made it go above my baseline volume here, because I want it to like get really loud and then sort of clunk into the actual groove of the track. Let's skip ahead a little bit. Anyway, I'm really into this groove right now. I think this might turn into something pretty cool. So I've got some lyrics recorded. We're not going to get to that just yet. Keep in mind, they're super, super raw, so they need to be re-recorded. This was just a scratch vocal, which means a vocal recorded just for the sake of knowing where the vocal is going to be. It's by no means final. It's just a guide. Anyway, so let's have a look at some other forms of automation. We can expand the track here, and we go to this button here, Trim. So we select that, and it brings up all the possible automation parameters, for lack of a better word, that you can set for any particular track. And you'll notice that this takes into account all the effects on the track as well. So in this case, it's just the software instrument that is playing on this particular track. So that's not very interesting. I don't really want to play around with that. So what else would we play around with? Well, we can have a look at the vocal now. So this is a pretty good example. I have a few plugins on this track that I'll show you. We've got some basic EQ, a compressor, and then this fancy little thing that I actually got for free ages ago. That were doing some sort of promotion. It's by Eventide. It's called Ultra Channel, and it's pretty dank. It's got like a bunch of shit in it. This could potentially be like an all-in-one EQ compressor and a bunch of other things, but I tend to use other things. I like to use the free stuff just because it's simpler. They tend to be lightweight and you don't have to worry with like copy protection sort of shit, which is ironic, isn't it? The free stuff is actually easier to use than the expensive stuff. Anyway, so I use this more often than not for stereo delay. I have other forms of stereo delay, but I just really like how simple, straightforward this one is, and how like subtle it is. A lot of the other stereo delay I have is like, whoa, just slapping in your face like a slippery fish. This one is comparatively quite subtle, so I like to use it a lot. Okay, so I'm just using this section right here, the stereo delay. As you can see right now, nothing's happening. It's off. It's not engaged. That's because I've set up some automation. This is actually not correct. I want that all the way down. Thank you. Okay, so what I've done here, let me walk you through the process. First, I would have expanded the track, click Trim, and then I would have found the bypass on the audio delay. On the stereo delay, because what I wanted to do was only have one word delay until the end of the phrase. So I don't want the whole phrase being delayed because that would have been too messy. I just want the final word to delay a little bit because I like that effect. So you got to find it in this list, which, can get pretty intimidating. There's only 3 effects on this channel, and already this is looking intimidating. There's a way around it. So first up, it's all grouped, as you can see, into these folders. So Re-Q, that's not it. We can get rid of that. The Scarlet Compressor, that's not it. We can get rid of that. Ultra Channel, that's the one. That's what we want. But still, there's like, which one do we pick? Well, we can type into the filter delay, and there it is, delay in. So keep in mind that sometimes it's not super clear what each of these options do, so it's worth playing around with a little bit because you're sort of at the mercy of the language of the plugin. For example, do we have a bypass here? We do have a bypass. So I think bypass tends to be, fairly common. Bypass is a language, a term that is common across Reaper. When you're bypassing an effect, you're turning it off. So bypass is usually pretty easy to find. But if you're trying to turn on and off a specific component of a VST, of an effect on a track, in this case, the delay in, we just want the delay to turn on when we want it and off when we don't want it. You gotta try and figure out what that specific plugin's language is. So we've looked up delay, and right here, delay in. That, that's what it is. That makes sense, because what else have we got? We've got level feedback. No, pan, this doesn't really make sense in terms of turning delay on and off, but delay in makes sense. So I've clicked that, to bring up the envelope rather, for turning delay on and off. Now, this can get a little bit confusing because it's a binary toggle, meaning 1, 0, on or off. There's no sliding scale. It's not like a little bit on or a little bit off, There's only 2 options. This might seem a little bit confusing. So sometimes, depending on the plugin, it will only let you set the automation to maximum or nothing at all, indicating that there is no middle ground. It's binary. It's on or it's off. Sometimes that is not the case, and I suspect it depends on whether it's a native plugin or not. Plugins native to Reaper, like the Reaper suite of plugins, the free ones, might function like I've just described, where the automation can only be set to maximum or nothing at all if it is a binary toggle. In this case, Reaper doesn't know that it's a binary toggle, I suspect, so you do get a sliding scale. So do keep in mind that if you want it on, you put it to maximum. If you want it off, you put it to nothing at all. So as you can see, we've set it to off right up until the last word here. Then when we put it all the way up to maximum, then we want to stop delaying at around this point here. So that's where I've turned it off. Okay, and I've got that running like all the way through here. So let's have a listen to what that sounds like. All right, so change of plans, something's actually broken. And this is partially why I prefer to use mostly native plugins, because they tend to just work better. So this is something that happens occasionally. Ultra Channel has kind of stopped working. So what I might have to do is remove the plugin and then put it back in, which is super obnoxious. So what I might do instead is pull up a different delay. So we'll go Tau, the dub delay, which is a free plugin. I highly recommend it. All the Tau plugins are great. So let's set this up again. This is a good exercise. So we'll go trim. We'll go down to dub delay. And I think we might just... Do we have a bypass on it? We do have a bypass on it. So I might just automate the bypass. So we'll be bypassing the whole plugin when we don't want it, which will be fine. So then we'll go back into the plugin, and it should be on. If we automate that off, now it's off, see? So in this particular case, it does see that it is a binary toggle. Why? Because it's the general bypass. We're actually telling Reaper to turn the plugin off. We're not telling the plugin itself to turn itself off, if that makes sense. So it knows it's a binary toggle. So it's either maximum or it's nothing at all. So in this case, bypassing it is turning it on. We're turning on the bypass, if that makes sense. I know it seems a little bit backwards, but you can see it quite clearly there. Cool. Okay, so now it's on. And we can set some delay settings here. So I'm just going to put it on like the standard default setting. We'll see what it sounds like. She's captured. That's a little much, right? So what do we got here? We can like pull it right back. Also, I might want to pull back the delay a little bit so it delays a little less. Hang on. So what I'll do is, so it's stereo delay, which means it delays at different times in each ear. So I'm going to go the left quarter notes and the right half notes. Sorry, I meant quarter notes. And see, all right. So what I did there was I linked them, and then that causes them to be exactly the same. That's not what I want. I want them not linked. So one's a quarter and one is half. Hey, you know what? That's not too bad. Okay, so if we just want to find ice. So I'm going to turn off snapping here, which is Alt-S by default. I just want to find the word ice. That sounds like mice. No, I don't like that. There we go. We'll put it there. So I'm going to zoom right in here. So, we're pretty accurate with exactly where the automation is going to start. Shift click. And then I'm going to follow along with, I'm going to re-engage snapping. So it's right on that bar. Okay, so now all we have to do is click and drag either side so that we've got the bypass is on during the vocal, and on that last word, the bypass is off, which means, I know, it's confusing, like I said before. So while the vocal is like the main vocal is playing, we will have no delay. On that last word, we will have delay. So it'll sound like this. I'm ice. So there you go. It still needs some tweaking to get it sounding like it did before with Ultra Channel, which now apparently doesn't want to work, which is just lovely. But this was my point. The reason I liked Ultra Channel is because it was very subtle with its delay. Dub delay is by default a lot harsher, so I fiddle around with the settings and I gotta get it sounding more to my liking. But there you go. So that's one use of automation, so that we can only apply effects to one particular word. Another way to do that would be to duplicate the vocal track and then cut out all the vocals except for that one word and apply delay to that track alone. But that's an awkward, tedious way to do it. It requires more work, and it's going to be using more system resources because you've got a whole other track with its duplicated effects. So you're essentially running two instances of the same effects. Why not just throw in some automation and you're doing the exact same thing, and it's actually easier to set up. I'm ice. Last thing I'm going to talk about in terms of automation is this one right here, which is volume pre-effects. So let's go back into the trim setting here. You can see that we've got volume automation, which I remind you is just hitting V and that'll come up. But then we've got this other one here called volume pre-effects. So this is the volume of the track before it goes through all the effects. You might be wondering, why is this useful? Well, for example, when it comes to vocals, it's super useful for a number of different things. One of which is de-essing. So de-essing is removing all those harsh S sounds from your recording. So when you've got your vocal running through compression, EQ, reverb, all those S sounds come out like really strong. They can come out really strong, and often they do. They certainly do with my voice. So it's good practice to go in and remove those. Now you can use automation to just dip down where the S is sounding out in your voice on the volume automation. But what ends up happening is, because that's volume after it's gone through all the effects, it's also dipping all the effects down, like reverb. So it sounds really unnatural. It sounds quite horrible. So if we do all that work, like going in manually and saying here's a really harsh S sound, let's just pull that right down. That's before it goes through the effects. And the result is a much more natural sounding voice. So let's see if I can show you an example here. She keeps me longing. She keeps me. I mean, there's an S right there. Just another word. Just another. There's a big old S there. I'm going to turn off snapping here to make this easier. Just another. Just another. Just another. So that whole thing there, we can probably get rid of that, right? So we're on volume pre-effects. What I'm going to do, there's multiple ways to interact with the envelope here. What I'm going to do is hold Control, and now see this little pen tool comes up. I'm just going to go, boop, like that. Simple as that. Just another word. And then I'm going to right-click drag. If we left-click drag, that brings up the time selection tool. We don't want that. So it's right-click drag to bring up the selection box. And we're just highlighting those nodes in the middle. I don't want them. I just want straight point A to point B. So that I can go like that. And we'll bring that back up. So I might make that even subtler. Still too much. It's not really that heavy of an S. Okay, let's play that. Longing was just another word from her lips. Now I'm going to get rid of it. Longing was just another word from her lips. And again. Longing was just another word from her lips. Just another word from her lips, right? So it's not like a super egregious S. It's not something that really warrants us cutting the whole core out of it. We just need to drop it a little bit, so it's a subtle example. Let's see if we can find something a little more egregious. From her lips, she plucks my lips. Lips, it's something it's a word that is often an issue. She plucks. So I'm just gonna go, boom, get rid of it. And again, I'm gonna right-click drag, cut out all the nodes in the middle. We don't need them. And sometimes you get like that as well. And unless you're like the world's smoothest mouse user and you can just draw straight lines like nobody's business, you're going to want to go in and get rid of the nodes that you accidentally draw in the middle. Lips, she plucks a word from her lips, she plucks my... Still a little bit unnatural, so we could stand to play around with that a little bit. Maybe not so deep a cut. A word from her lips, she plucks my heart. And now, like, see what it sounds like before all that? From her lips, she plucks my heartstrings. Right? I mean, they can still use some refining. I would spend quite a lot of time on this, honestly. And yes, this is a tedious process. But it's once you've done it, it improves your vocal like nobody's business. It's huge, dude. But that's essentially how that works. So that's another use for automation. So let's recap. We've got like standard just volume. You can automate volume so that you can choose like this section of the song, I want this particular instrument to come down in volume. In this section of the song, I want this particular instrument to be louder. You can do the same with panning. So that, you know, it's not like hard left, hard right the whole time, but maybe I want a particular instrument to be a little bit louder in one side for one particular part of the song and louder in another side for another particular part of the song. You would use panning automation in that way. You can use automation to turn an effect on and off at will. Prime example is what I showed off here, where you'd want just delay working on one word and like the final word of a phrase. You'd use automation to turn the effect on just for that word and off for the rest of it. And then of course you've got the pre-effects volume control for de-essing. There are de-essing plugins, but it's the brute force solution. It's not smart. You can use that in conjunction with manual pre-effects volume automation, but I just kind of like doing the pre-effects volume automation anyway. It makes the vocal just sit in nicer with a mix, in my opinion. When I figured out how to do this, or more to the point, when I figured out that this was a thing that needed to be done, the increase in quality in my vocal recordings, in my opinion, was like tenfold. It was huge. Because previously it was either I'm trying to compress the vocals so much so that it's not too loud or too soft and it's perfect the whole way through. It's much easier and it'll give you a much better result. If you go in and you're like, hey, I sing this word way too loud, so let's just like bring it back, and like this part's a whisper, it's really hard to hear, so let's bring it up. All the P's and B's, the plosives, the S sounds, cut them right out. We don't need them. We just need like a hint of it. Anyway, you get it. You play around with it. It's a long process, that sort of thing. Automation. I thought this was going to be a really simple, quick, easy topic. Turns out there's a lot more to it than it may seem at first. There's just a lot you can do with automation. It's a whole thing. It's like playing Factorio in Reaper. Making music. Alright guys, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to gently caress that like button. Be excellent to each other, and I'll see you next time. Ricky Summer. Out.